Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Let's go ride a real classic bike from a bygone era and see what it's like to ride one of these beautiful old bikes. Yeah, we'll get some kit on, we'll get the camera mounted on the helmet and we'll go out for a little toodle on it, and you can see what it's like and hopefully hear what it's like. I don't know how much the microphone will pick up, but hopefully you should get some of the sounds of it. Weather-wise in Spain today, I spoke to my son in the UK this morning, and he was telling me he was working, he works in the construction industry, and it was -3 in Wrexham in North Wales where he's currently working, and he said it was absolutely freezing. So there was I think there was a high of 4 degrees today, and it was 3 degrees, minus 3 degrees when I spoke to him this morning. And you can see, you know, we've got sunshine here. It's probably 23, 24 degrees at the moment, although it does tend to get a little bit cooler here in the winter up in the mountains. So currently I've got a t-shirt on, a pair of jeans, but I'll put a jacket on and a helmet and some gloves, and we'll mount the camera and we'll get out on a ride and chat about what it's like to ride something that's 50-year-old as opposed to anything modern. We've got petrol in the carb. So guys, what's the appeal of having a original classic bike as opposed to something like the Royal Enfield 350 Classic? Well, to be honest, I can't really see the kudos of having a modern 350 Classic over something like this, which is an original classic from a bygone era. The problem with most people who buy modern classics, especially the 350 Royal Enfield, they just want to jump on something that looks like a classic bike, press a button and ride. And there lies the problem. They're not prepared to work and gel and work with the bike to get the bike started, to ride the bike and have an affinity with the bike. It's a mechanical thing that you have to get to grips with and to know every foible of the bike, and that's part of the attraction why we buy classic bikes and ride them. So I'm going to do a bit further on this trail. I'm going to pull up and we'll pull over and we'll talk a bit about the bike in depth. Turn it off and we'll have a walk around the bike again, and park it up there. And I don't know whether the camera will pick this up, the scenery. This is one of the back roads through the mountains. Stunning scenery up in the pine trees, and yeah, it's a great fun little bike. It really does throw you off with the gear shift on the other side. It's quite mind-boggling until you get used to it. You do get used to it, but you've got to be conscious of it all the time. Drum brakes front and back, so it's definitely not like a modern bike with disc brakes, although it does pull up okay for the weight of it. I can't remember the overall weight. I think it's something like 135, 140 kilos. It's not a heavy bike. They were designed quite light, really. Once you take everything off, the frame, although it's steel, it's not overly heavy. Yeah, it's a sweet little bike. They made a few models with this type of engine, ranging from the 250 right through to the 450. And the 250 Deluxe was a road bike that's really got a 60s vibe about it. It really does look like a 60s bike, and I think if I could probably find one, I would add one to the collection just to keep as not so much an investment. I mean, you're never going to lose your money on an old bike if you keep on top of it, but just have something in my collection as the road version, the 250 road maybe. If I can find one in a good enough condition and cheap enough, I'll probably buy one, but they're getting few and far between in Spain at the moment, as well as the UK. So yeah guys, in my other video I said something from a much simpler time, and these certainly were, these bikes. They were much simpler. It dawned on me when I was changing the carb and swapping them over and changing the jets and the needle from the old one to this one, because they were different ratings, and trying to get it right, how simple it is to, I mean, the carburettor itself, once you dismantle it, it's so easy to dismantle and put back together. And the workings inside are amazing on the old style carburetors. And the simplicity of it, I mean, all you need is your fuel, your air, and obviously a spark for the ignition, and your timing to be right for the spark, obviously, and you're away to go. So unlike your modern bikes with the EFI and all the rest of it, they're controlled, although they're better if you go into altitude and you're getting different air pressures. They seem to work better, but you could always fiddle around with the mixture on these older bikes. They're quite accessible, the mixture and the idle speed, etc. But yeah, what were we doing when we were teenagers? I remember when I was 16, I couldn't wait to get my first bike, and it was a Yamaha FS1E Fizzy. And I think my friends had the AP50 and other bikes, and 16 we were off and out and riding about. And kids these days, they're just walking around with a head in a phone. They've got no sort of sense of freedom and escape that we had when we rode our motorbikes back in the 70s. And of course, when you got to 17, you couldn't wait to get off your little 50cc that you had tuned so you could get the maximum 50-60 mile an hour downhill with that backwind behind you onto something bigger. And we were quite lucky that we could jump onto a 250, albeit with an L plate on the back. He still to put an L, and you couldn't go on motorways, or you weren't supposed to go on motorways, I should say. A lot of us did. We pulled our L's off and just shot down the motorway, but a bit naughty, you weren't supposed to. But yeah, just different times, guys. I mean, you got to 17, you got your next big bike, and of course then you got into the dating game and you needed a car, so you sold your bike, you got a car, and then you got a bike again later, and off and on. And it's a strange journey we all went on. And some of us like myself, and maybe a few of you watching this video, we had this affinity with bikes, and we still have that sense of freedom when we get on ride, and we can just lose ourselves in the moment, especially up here in the mountains where I live. And I think some of the best rides I go on are the rides where I'm not actually going anywhere. I'm not in a rush to get anywhere. If I'm going on the Vosges and I'm going shopping or whatever, I'm going on a journey from A to B, and then it's about getting to your destination and getting there and getting back. But on something like this, and on my Super Meteor, I tend to do it as well. I just drift off and start exploring and ride around. But I've done this route a few times on the Super Meteor, and the difference, guys, on the Super Meteor over these bumps, these tree roots. I stood up a couple of times on this, you'll probably have noticed on the video, but on the Super Meteor, you're going over these rough roads, and some of this is tarmac, some of it's not. You're going over here and you're getting jarred to bits on the suspension on the back, so it makes you wonder. I know we've got a lot of weight in the Super Meteor, so that's an added problem with the rear shocks, but yeah, it makes you think. In bygone days we still rode our bikes fast, but they were a lot softer, or they seem to be a lot softer on the suspension than they are now. So guys, we'll get back on the bike and we'll get it running again, and toodle a bit more around, and hopefully you can see some of the landscape and get a sense of what the bike's like and how it looks from my rider position. And like I say, it's a fun little bike to ride. You can throw it around a bit. It's got new Mitas tyres on this, and now I'm thinking I should have gone more intermediates, maybe sort of scrambler-esque tyre on it, and maybe gone up a few forest tracks. We'll see. It's only time will tell. I'll tinker about and keep doing stuff with it. So yeah, get on with the ride and you can carry on with me, guys. Now what I tend to do on this, I think because it's running a bit rich, it does tend to swallow when it's ticking over the last bit of juice in the carb, and you shouldn't really have to tickle it every time we get on it, but I'll make sure we've got some juice in the carb there, and hopefully we'll start again. The same thing again, it's just a case of getting the kickstart past up dead centre, so there's a hell of a compression on these bikes, so with the weight of your foot and your body you can kick it from this position, but it's very, very hard to do. What I tend to do is sort of get it sort of over top dead centre if I can. I can just feel it there, and then hopefully on this kick through it should start on a kickstart. So yeah, and you really have to have an affinity with your bikes when you're riding something old or something with a carb and something that's got drum brakes. So you have to be at one with your bike, where modern bikes do everything for you: ABS, traction control, cornering, ABS, all the rest of it. Yeah, it's a whole different kettle of fish with these bikes. So guys, again, excuse the quality on this video. The microphone I had problems with earlier on, as I explained, and some parts of this video I've got a voiceover, which I'm sorry that I had to do. It's not something I normally do. I like to record things on the spur of the moment and just share my thoughts as they're coming into my head. But yeah, as we stopped and talked there on the trail, I was talking about how youngsters live their lives and how they are so wrapped up in technology that's a screen in front of them. They're walking around looking at a mobile phone, constantly on a tablet. As soon as they get in from school, they're in front of a computer screen. I mean, when we were kids, the highlight of our day was getting a calculator and typing Shell Oil in numbers, turning your calculator upside down and reading it as writing. We thought that was hilarious. And then in the mid-70s, LCD watches came out. The early ones were the red watches before the LCD came out, and that was real high tech. Or if you had a cassette player and you could record Top of the Pops onto your cassette player, that was technology way before anything like computers, iPhones, anything like they've got today. So it was a different time where you get up, especially on school holidays, you get up and you get out on your bicycle when you were children, and you'd go out for the complete day, and you'd go miles and miles and miles without any fear of going that distance on a push bike with your friends, and you'd spend the whole day out kicking a ball about or on a bike or doing stuff instead of sat in front of the TV. Things have changed so much now that kids are really sort of marginalised, and there's lots of problems with the kids being stuck in a bedroom on a computer or whatever. So like I was saying earlier, as soon as we were 16, because we'd gone from push bikes on adventures, we wanted a motorbike. And the big thing about that was continuing the adventure and continuing exploring. And I suppose with a lot of us guys that are from the 60s and 70s, that has carried over with our biking, and we still continue to get something from that. Whether the new generations of the noughties going forward are going to be the same, whether biking is ever going to be the same as it was, it remains to be seen. I mean, they're talking about bringing electric bikes in and doing away with all petrol vehicles within, you know, certainly within our lifetime, the next 10 or so years, that things are going to change dramatically. But what I will say is the feeling you get of riding something that's been around for 50 years, and 50 years is not a long time really in the scheme of things, but for youngsters, if you say 50 to a youngster, it's going to appear to be a vast amount of time to them. But this particular bike I'm riding now, like I said before, you have to have a real affinity with a bike, and you have to know the bike, you have to gel with a bike. And a lot of people, when they decide to buy a classic bike, and people do that later in life, even ones from the 70s and 80s where we had push button start bikes and we didn't really know the bikes of earlier, like the early 70s and 60s, a lot of people buy a classic bike like I bought this, and when they first buy it, they can't start it, they can't kick it over, they don't know the right procedure, and they just think the bike's either broken, it doesn't work right, and that leads to frustration, and it leads them to selling the bike when they don't really understand it and haven't really gelled or learned how to use the bike or live with a bike or actually fettle a bike and mechanic on the bike. To be honest, I've not had a great deal of mechanical influence on the bikes I've had over the years. I've just put them into dealers and got them serviced and used them. Okay, cars and 4x4s and things like that, I've pulled engines, gearboxes, changed engines and gearboxes on my own under 4x4s by jacking them up in the air. So I've done a lot of spannering on vehicles, but not so much on bikes, and it really is endearing to pick up a spanner and take something apart and fettle it and get it working how you want it to work, and the joy of doing that without having any frustration. I mean, you've got to really get into the zone of doing it as a therapeutic thing, to enjoy it and to gel with the bike, and the more you do it, the more your relationship with an older bike develops. And you'll have seen from my videos that I've got the Moto Guzzi 1100 California, that's a beautiful bike. I mean, I really like spannering on that and doing things with that, and you know, keeping on top of it and doing bits and bobs. And it's these things that we can do with a classic bike that you don't tend to do with a newer bike, even a modern classic. If you were to buy a 350 Classic or the new 650 Classic Royal Enfield, you're going to shove that back into a main dealer for a good number of years to get the warranty and everything stamped and signed off, and it just hasn't got, okay, you might intermediately change the oil like I've done on my Super Meteor, the filters, etc., but it is different. If you're mechanicking and you're messing around with your bike and you're gelling with your bike, and you have a relationship more so than just enjoying and riding a bike. And don't get me wrong, I do enjoy riding the Vosges, and I really enjoy riding the Super Meteor. It's a superb bike to ride, but it's a case of pressing a button and riding it, where this, you really have to know what you're doing and be at one with the bike. Anyway guys, I suppose this video is going to work its way out in a couple of minutes and get to the end. What I would say to you is, I had a tremendous amount of views on the other video I put up on this particular bike, so there is an interest for classic bikes as opposed to modern classics. Now, I've always said I've got a bit of a beef from modern classics. I did have the 500 Classic back in 2016, if you scroll back through my videos, and I did like it, but I always felt it was like having a fake watch. So you see on AliExpress and all these different sites, you can buy fake Rolex, a fake Omega, and you can wear it, but deep down when you wear it, you know it's not the real thing. And I had the same feeling with the Classic 500. I thought it was a copy of something from a bygone era, albeit made by the same manufacturer. It just didn't have the same kudos as this particular bike. Now, I know I've got the Super Meteor 650, and I've explained this in a few videos, that I think that is a modern interpretation of the Super Meteor from the 70s, so I don't have any qualms with that. It's not anything like the original. It's got its own lines, its own looks, and its own style, and that's what makes it special, and that's why I really like it. So guys, if you've liked this video, give me a like, give me a thumbs up, give me some pointers from what you want to see, if you want me to do some more classic bike videos, or you're watching my other videos if you want to know anything about the other bikes I own and I ride. I'm quite happy to help out and give you advice on all of them. Advice is free, doesn't cost anything. You ask a question, I'm quite happy. If I've got the time, I'll answer it and I'll get back to you. So guys, thanks for following me on this video again, and thanks for enjoying the ride with me. Ride safe, give me a like, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care guys, and peace out.